All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh along with Chris Mueller here tonight. This is our Xfinity Tweet of the Night. It might be hard to read this. This is the Masters Champion Dinner by Rory McIlroy. Look, I'm a big fan of Rory. I wasn't a big fan of this, especially the appetizers. I don't know about the peach and ricotta flatbread or the bacon wrapped dates. I guess that's a Northern Ireland thing. I mean, but the main course is pretty good. The Wagyu filet, salmon, and I really love the dessert, the sticky toffee pudding. And if you look at those wines, I was doing some research. I think the average wine price is like $2,000 a bottle. And he's the one that's paying for this.
Well, that's Pompeiani territory for wine. That's Pomp territory for wine. I think Rory can afford
wine. These look some like white and champagne wines.
Well, first of all, bacon wrapped dates. I don't know about that being like specific to where Rory's from. I've had bacon wrapped dates. They're delicious.
I read that it was his mother's. It's a Northern Ireland. I don't know. I just read it was a Northern Ireland dish. That's the reason I said it. So maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, bacon wrapped dates are terrific. The Wagyu filet is great. The sticky toffee pudding, very interesting. I thought the only questionable thing was elk sliders. Very gamey meat here. I don't know if you want a burger made of that. But Rich, Rory's menu was, as it usually is, like for whoever wins this. Hideki Matsuyama had all the different sushi and fresh fish. Very cool. Scotty Scheffler's is like classic comfort food, but it's done right and it's really good. The best one of these of all time for how bad it was is Bubba Watson in 2013.
Yeah.
Caesar salad, grilled chicken breast, confetti cake.
Yeah.
Rich, I could make that dinner for people. I could have 20 people at my house and be like, guess what? You're getting Caesar salad, grilled chicken breast, and confetti cake from the store. Have a good one.
I would have loved to seen John Daly win the Masters because I would have loved to see what his Champions Dinner would be like.
Wings from Hooters. That's what he would have gone with.
Yeah,
wings
right.
And Busch Light.
And cigarettes as your
Diet
dessert.
Coke and M&Ms as your appetizer. Yeah. A bowl of M&Ms for each participant.
All right, don't forget about our Penn West University question of the night. Just scan that QR code in the right-hand corner of your screen. Would you want the Penguins to sign Evgeni Malkin to a 2-year contract? I'll let you answer that, Chris, and then I want to get back to the question I asked you before the break. I don't know if I would sign him to a 2-year contract, but, I can't argue with what he's doing. But at some point, Father Time is going to catch up to you. I would probably cut ties.
I mean, if it's cut ties or 2-year deal, then you're really put in a bind. Like, if he really says, I am going to go somewhere else if they offer me 2 years, which I'm not sure he would do, then it gets very awkward. If you give him 2 years, you are extending his contract 1 year past the current endpoint of Sidney Crosby's. And I think we all assume Crosby is going to want to keep playing after his deal is up after next year, but he might want to go year to year. So if you know he wants to do that, and you know Crosby wants to play with Malkin for his entire career, respectively, then maybe you have the faith that, okay, Malkin gets next year with Crosby. He's got 1 year left, but Crosby's just going to start going year to year and sign 1-year deals with you. Maybe you do it. It's tough, man, because when he looks shot out of a cannon like he did against the Avalanche, you say, okay, I'd obviously do this. I thought tonight there were some sloppy plays. His kind of inexplicable move on a power play situation led to the first goal of the game for Carolina. I just did not. He was menacing in overtime, and he was menacing people with the puck, and he was good on the forecheck at times. I didn't think he was great tonight, though, and those are the games that give you pause. If you forced me to pick here, and you said either 2-year deal or let him walk, it's 2-year deal. He's done too much for the franchise. He kept them afloat this year for stretches of time. He's been their best player for stretches of time this year. I would grit my teeth and do it. I'm not so sure Kyle Dubas feels that way, though.
I guess it depends on the money, too. For me, you got to start getting younger, and I think the plan is, there's this transition period, and you're going to make the playoffs this year, or at least you think so. But at some point, you got to transition the Malkins into younger players, and that's how you win.
I know, but you're also talking about a guy who is still providing for you a point per game and slightly better than
But will he do that in his late 30s?
Well,
I mean, you know what it feels like to
at
hit
this
your
point
40s?
it'll be 40. Yeah, thanks. That's a body blow. That's right to the liver.
Well, I
Thank
mean,
you, Rich.
we all know what it feels like to be in your 40s.
I know, but he's a world-class athlete, and I think he's shown like a spring in his step. And the one thing, here's the real wild card. I think a huge reason why he's actually come out of the chute, suspension aside, and been pretty good for the most part in this part of the season. He got 3 weeks off. Russia didn't play in the Olympics, and I think he is a guy who wears down a little bit at this point in his career as the season goes on and becomes more prone to injury. You don't have built-in Olympic breaks. You don't have these huge stretches of time where he's not going to play every year. So that makes it dicier, but he's been good enough, and I'm going to have a little bit of blind faith, and I would say if he wants 2 years at basically the exact amount of money he was getting this year, I would do that deal.
Like 2 years, $8 million total. 4 years, $4 million a year. Is that a fair number?
I mean, I would say maybe. So you're saying you'd want to knock down maybe the amount per year and try to get it for a little. I don't know. 2 and 10 sounds like it would be fine.
Okay.
If he'll do that.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 and 10, $5 million a year, 5.5 even. I mean, he's been. I know you keep saying that they need to get younger, and you're not wrong. But he's been so good for the balance of this season. He lost his mind and got suspended. He came out the next game and immediately took control of the game. Like, he is still a guy at 39, as crazy as it is to behold, who can take command of hockey games and do so on multiple occasions. It's not just like he has one of these every 15 games. He can do this on a night-in, night-out basis still.
But at some point, I'm stressing this youth.
Sure.
Because Chris Letang's also tied to this team for another 2 years too, right?
Chris Letang is somebody, man. Now we're talking about a player whose contract and whose performance really do not match up. He has looked, I think, his age and then some this year. And he is the one guy of the big three that I always thought maybe would be somewhat inclined of his own volition to play somewhere else. So the problem is not Crosby. The problem is not Malkin. I do think you've seen an obvious and pretty clear permanent decline from Letang. Like, as much as Carlson, I was talking about in the open to the show, has thrived under Dan Muse and finally become like the Erik Karlsson people were hoping the Penguins would get, it feels like Letang has gone the opposite direction and just is no longer the version of himself that we're accustomed to seeing.
Well, Carlson's definitely made up for it. So let's go back to that question I asked you in the first segment. So 14 games left. If they go 7-7, that's 14 points. Let's just say that gives you 98 points. Does that get it done? Does that get them a spot in the postseason?
I mean, I think it would, but we know it's the Penguins, so what they'll go is 7-1-6 and only lose one game in regulation, and then they'll actually get 20 points out of that, and they will cruise into the playoffs at 104.
Oh, whoa, 104. And bounce.
Well, no, that's just what they do, Rich.
Yeah.
They get into overtime in these games. You know what? I'm going to get up on my soapbox here. I'm going to step up. I'm going to pantomime stepping up on my imaginary soapbox here. 3-on-3 overtime stinks. It really does. And I understand that when it does produce scoring chances, they are usually high danger. Did you watch that and really sit there and go, I am very entertained by the 4+ minutes I got? It's just and it's all strategy. Hey, we got possession of the puck. All right, send it back into our zone. Let's get a nice fresh change here, and then let's go for our rush up the ice. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a gimmick that I think has worn thin, and I hate the fact that it decides so many games, and I hate the fact that the Penguins aren't good at it and aren't good in the shootout, and that's why they're even in a position to be kind of sweating it as far as the playoffs go.
What would you go back to? Just overtime, 5 minutes, and then that's it?
Rich, I would honestly, I would consider bringing back the noble tie. I would consider bringing back just win-loss tie.
All right, so you go 5 minutes overtime, you tie, you get 1 point. That's it. No winner.
I mean, sure, if you want to play an extra 5 minutes of 5-on-5, like, I would even take 4-on-4. I just think that when you have 3-on-3, there's so much open ice, and these teams are so hyper-coached, I will say. Like, it's so regimented as to, okay, this is what we want to do. Instead of it being like free-flowing and creative and let's trade chances and go crazy, they just try to rag the puck and then, okay, we're going to set up for one rush or we're going to try to do this. You get 4-on-4, I think you have less open ice, but more like organic, normal hockey that comes from that. That's my main contention.
All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got Guy out in Ligonier. What's up, Guy?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, thanks for calling.
What do you think about getting the offensive guard from Penn State in the first round?
I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Look, I'm still thinking that they're going to go receiver. I feel like receiver, maybe then guard. Defensive back. It's going to be one of those three positions, I would think. I don't know. What do you?
I think if you have a chance to get a difference.
They didn't send the big guys to Happy Valley, and that's mainly because I know Andy Weidl's been up there a few times this year, and so some other guys, but they all went to Georgia today.
Well, it's also not the Tomlin regime anymore where you can judge whether or not they're going to pick a player by and large by whether or not he shows up at the pro day. I know they broke that trend with Derek Harmon last year. Vega, I think, I'm going to mess up his name a million times. Vega Ioane, I think, is a guy that is an obvious potential star. Like there's a chance you get David DeCastro 2.0 basically in terms of a guard. But I am of the opinion you draft a wide receiver. I know that there's this idea that you keep building along the trenches. They've spent a good amount of premium draft capital on the offensive line, and obviously the one big one that hasn't worked out is Broderick Jones, and hasn't worked out in pretty spectacular fashion, unfortunately for them. But you have a chance for a Jordan Tyson, a guy that is a game-breaking level player, guy who creates separation on his own, a guy who could be within a year or two, probably by year 2, your true #1 wide receiver. They don't grow on trees. They cost a ton to trade for. Once teams get them like a Jamar Chase, they tend to sign them and keep them long-term. Justin Jefferson, I would draft a wide receiver. It's a deep class. It's a talented class, but I would still take one at 21.
Yeah, you get guys like Mason McCormick in the 4th round. I'm sure there's guards out there, or a tackle, or someone you can move over. Troy Fautano, I know a lot of those guys thought he would be projected as a guard maybe in a couple years, and if you did that, maybe whatever. I think there's options up front, and I'm with you. I would like a guy like Lemon. I don't know if he falls to the Steelers. I really like Jordan Tyson. Don't know if he makes it to the Steelers, but I think that would be a lot of people think he's the best receiver in the draft, and outside of injury, that's maybe the big reason why he's fallen.
I'm one of them. As good as Carnell Tate is, and I'm not thrown off at all by Tate's mediocre 40 time. I'm not thrown off on Denzel Boston at all by him not running, because everyone assumes he would be kind of slower than people think. I happen to think Tyson's the best receiver in the draft. I think the guy was game planned for and was the only weapon at times for Arizona State, and he still balled out and put up numbers. I think that says something.
All right, we got to take a break. Back to wrap things up. Coming up next. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Rich Walsh along with Chris Mueller. Chris, do you think the Steelers draft a quarterback this year?
Oh, that's a good question. Since I know you're not asking first round, which I think is the no chance proposition.
Yeah, 0, I think.
I'm going to say yes, they do, but I'm going to say it's day 3. I'm going to say it's probably a guy with tools, but maybe a fatal flaw or two that would have to be corrected. That's not an easy correction. So I think they've learned their lesson maybe on going with these supposed high floor, lower ceiling players. And they might take another shot in the dark at somebody that they think they could mold. But no quarterback they would take in this year's draft is somebody I think they would ever intend to be their starting quarterback unless they got lucky.
Well, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I don't know if they draft a quarterback. I think if they do, it's probably later if they have extra picks. But if he doesn't, I could see them maybe going after Drew Aller. I know we only have 30 seconds, but do you think Mike McCarthy went to Georgia to get some intel on Carson Beck? There's been some rumors about that, too.
I think it's likelier they would draft Beck than they would draft Aller. It just does not seem like they are all that into Aller. If you combine them not going to the pro day with Jerry Dulac, what he wrote in his chat about Aller, seems like they might not be so happy about him as a prospect, is all I would say.
All right, thanks a lot, Chris. We'll see you back here same time, same place tomorrow. Hopefully we see you guys on KDKA News right now.